Hi everyone, in this video we are going to go over how to use my wedding planner spreadsheet. Now to introduce myself really quickly first, my name is Leah and I am currently a bride-to-be, so I have designed this spreadsheet as a bride myself based on things I've done in my wedding planning so far and things I need for my wedding planning in the future. So I have created this spreadsheet for all my fellow brides and I have tried to make it as functional as possible to help you plan your dream wedding with less stress and overwhelm and more organization and excitement. If you do not have a copy of this spreadsheet yet and you would like to, I will leave a link to the product in the description box below so you can grab a copy for yourself or another bride in your life. So let's jump into how to use this spreadsheet and all its amazing features. One very quick thing that I want to note before you begin using the spreadsheet is that when you open it up, you may see this warning at the top. This warning appears because some of the functions link out to external URLs so that you can take images such as from your venue or places that you're traveling for your honeymoon and insert them right into your spreadsheet. So you can absolutely click allow access so that that functionality can happen and nothing will be harmed in your spreadsheet. The very first tab you're going to want to fill out is the Start tab. Now there are so many things that you can fill out on this tab, so I'm going to walk you through them step by step. First of all, you can add in the bride's first and last name and the groom's first and last name. Then you can add in your wedding date. You can either type this in and the format will update to this, or you can double click and use this pop-up calendar and select any date that is your wedding date. Next, you can add in a location if you have one, and then you can add in any other important dates. This section is totally optional, but it will show you how many days away you are from each of the different events. As you can see for the Bachelorette and the honeymoon section, we give you space to add in 2 dates, mainly a start date and an end date, and the days away will calculate based on the start date. And if you only want to add in a start date, that is totally fine, as seen here. Next, you're going to add in your currency by either typing this in or copy and pasting it from the web. This will set the entire spreadsheet into your own currency. From this drop down here, you're going to select your week's start date. This is the first date of the week that your calendar starts off with. For most people, this will be Sunday, like for myself, but for some people it's Monday, so we wanted to include the option here. Similarly, for this time drop down, you're going to select whether you want to use a 12-hour clock or a 24-hour clock. I'm in the US and we use a 12-hour clock, but again, if you prefer to have a 24-hour clock or that's the time format that you use, you can absolutely select it here. Next, we're going to add in all the options to customize our spreadsheet. Now, please don't get overwhelmed by this. You can absolutely come back to this as you go and add to them. This first row up here is going to be for our invite lists, and you can add in different tags for the bride's guest, the groom guest, and any mutual guests. Beneath that, you can add any meal options for your reception. This is completely optional, and if you're doing something like catering food where everyone will get the same options, you can absolutely leave this empty. Next, you're going to add in any payment options for paying for different parts of your wedding. This will be included on the budget tab. You can add in different parts of your ceremony. I included some examples here. And this is for your music list tab so that you can sort the music that you want to use by the part of the day that it's specifically for. Beneath that, you can add in any registry categories, any categories for the notes tab so that you can sort and filter any notes. And then you're going to add different payment methods for your honeymoon, bachelorette, and bridal shower. If you don't plan on using any of those tabs, you can leave them blank. And again, you can come back to these and add more in the future. This is all just to help you make this spreadsheet as customizable for your experience as possible. Next, we are going to go ahead and jump on over to the Overview tab. Now, when you first open this tab in your blank spreadsheet, this tab is going to appear very empty and not have many details, but as you slowly add in more and more details into the other tabs, this tab will slowly populate. Now, as you may notice in the tab bar, this tab does have a lock with it, which means that if you try to edit certain areas of this tab, you'll receive an error. If this pops up, it's no problem at all. Just click cancel and nothing will happen. We added in this lock just to ensure that no mistakes are accidentally made for any of the formulas and to prevent breaks in this tab. Now, there are a few key areas that I want to show you in this tab. First of all, to the left, we have a table of contents, which looks like this and goes all the way to the bottom. If you click any of these buttons in this tab, you can jump right on over to the respective tab. The upper tabs are all for wedding planning, but we also give you tons of bonus tabs in the spreadsheet, which you can open up using these plus signs on the side, and you can also collapse them by clicking the button again. So for example, if I wanted to jump on over to honeymoon tabs, I can just open this section and click one of the buttons and jump on over to it. And we have a honeymoon section, a bachelorette section, a bridal shower section, and a rehearsal dinner section. To the right side of this tab, we have all of our automations. Again, these pull from a ton of other tabs and give you lots of different details regarding your wedding day. Your names should appear at the top with your wedding day. You should see a countdown of the number of days until your wedding, some progress of the save the dates sent, invites sent, RSVPs received, and number of people attending. And then down here, you can see your final guest breakdown. To view more details of these charts, you can just click on it and then hover over any of the sections to see what they're for, how many people are in them, and the percent that they make up of the pie chart. And this works for any of the charts, not only in this tab, but in this entire spreadsheet. To streamline the aesthetics of this tab, we removed the labels, but many of the other tabs have labels directly on the charts. We have financial breakdowns to the right here, and we have our spend distribution down here. And in the bottom left, we have a table of due dates that have yet to be marked as complete. If the due date is in the task, then it will appear like this top one. But other than that, you should see any upcoming due dates in ascending order. You can also see the number of days until that specific due date. If you want to jump over to any of these due dates, you can click the symbol on the left and jump right over to that due date in the respective tab. That way, if you want to mark it as complete or view more details, you can easily jump right to it. Next, we are going to jump over to one of my favorite tabs in the entire spreadsheet, and I have used this when planning out my own guest list. This is the guest list tab, which also keeps track of invites, thank yous, gifts, meal options, and more. The reason that I decided to condense this all into one tab is because it gives you the most accurate information. If I split it into different tabs, then different things could easily move around, and I know that we don't want to deal with any of those hassles before or after our wedding, so it all streamlines perfectly into this tab, and I'm going to show you exactly how to use it. Now, for the purpose of examples, I've gone ahead and added in a ton of details into this spreadsheet so that it's already populated. But when you open this up, it's likely going to appear blank, and some of the charts may seem like they have errors, but that's only because you don't have any data added in yet. Once you add in some information, all the charts should begin to populate. First things first, the bride and groom's names should automatically appear at the top like this, and then you can see a count of all your other guests going down like this. For this spreadsheet, you're going to add in the first name and last name of each guest attending. While this may seem a little more tedious, this is the way that you are going to get the most detailed tracking of exactly who's coming, exactly who's not, meal options, gifts, and so much more. So yes, while it might take a little longer to type in the names individually, I really think you'll be happy you did it after. For each guest, you'll add in the first name, last name, and then the group number is optional, but I really like adding in a group number because if you decide to sort or filter your data like this, and all of a sudden all your names are mismatched, you can just sort the groups A to Z again, and the people who belong together will go right back together. You can do group numbers however you want. I do them by whoever is in a family or attending with a specific person. So if you have a friend and they're bringing their girlfriend, then you could have them with the same group number. And all you have to do is add in a 1, 2, 3, and so on for each of the different groups. For example, if you had a family of 5, then you might want to add all those names into the same group number. Again, this section is optional, and if you don't want to worry about it, you totally do not have to include it. After this, you're going to select from the dropdown whether the guest is from the bride, the groom, or both, and then you're going to add in your guest tag. If you have a ton of guest tags, you can begin typing in, for example, immediate family, and then select the one that applies. Then you're going to go through and check off who you're for sure inviting, who you're not going to invite, and people that you may invite. We also have a section where you can check off if certain people are children, which can help because I know my venue cuts the cost for children of a certain age and even makes them free if they're under a certain age. On my own spreadsheet, I just added in the actual name of the kids into the notes column. And you can choose whatever you want child to mean for you. So if you want children to mean people under 13, then you can do that. If you want children to mean kids under 3, then you can do that as well. However you want to use it for your specific wedding. If there's a certain column that you don't want to use at all, like the group column, and you just want to hide it completely, you can right-click the column in the upper bar and then click Hide Column, and it will disappear just like this. A few other things I want to quickly note before moving on is that the Control or Command F hack is going to be one of your best friends when using the spreadsheet. You're going to have so many names, and if you want to find a specific name really quick, you can do Command F or Control F on your keyboard, and this should pop up over here. And then you can type in the name, and then use the arrows to go right to those names in your list. Also, sorting and filtering these tabs is truly going to be one of your best friends. For example, if I only wanted to view people who I am maybe inviting, I can select these 3 lines here, and I'm going to filter it to only show my maybes, just like this, and it makes it super easy. If I wanted to undo my filter, I could just click the filter button and then go to select all, and it will appear like nothing happened. You could do this with certain guest tags. You could see all the children by just viewing true. You can also sort your guest list instead. So maybe you want to sort by last name like I did before. It is totally up to you how you do it, but I really recommend sorting and filtering the tables which extend across the entire tab, because you may end up with so many names on this list. And yes, if you sort or filter in one column, it will sort and filter all of them throughout the tab. So for example, if I were to sort the people that I want to send save the dates to, it updates all of the rows just like this. Going back to this section, here you can add in addresses and contact information for all of your guests. What I would suggest if you have multiple people in the same family is to just add in the contact information or address for the first person in your group. For example, if you have a family of 4, you don't need to add in the address for each person, especially if they're only getting one invite for the group. I think that can definitely save you lots of time and energy. Moving on, here is the Save the Date section. In the first column, you are going to check off any of the people that you want to send a save the date to, and then in the column next to it, you'll check it off once you've sent them the save the date. The numbers and the pie chart will update above. So for example, you can see when I check and uncheck this box, everything up here updates. Again, you may only need to send one save the date for certain groups of people. Again, you probably won't want to send every single person on your list a save the date. So checking off, for example, just one person in a family will help you to get an accurate count of how many save the dates you'll actually need to send. As you can see in this example, I just checked off the boxes next to addresses that I had, which meant I was just going to send it to that person in the group. If I wanted to, as I did before, I could filter this section to just show the people that I want to send save the dates to, and it makes it much more easy when I'm checking off who they've actually been sent to. So that's just another example of how using the sorting and filtering can help you. The invite section is essentially the same. I believe I just checked off the boxes based on who I was sending the save the dates to, because they would also be getting an invite, and then you can check them off once they're sent as well, and the details will update. Next is the RSVP section, where you can check off how people have RSVP'd. There are 3 options: yes, no, and pending. And as you add in RSVPs, the pie chart up here will update. If you want a more detailed breakdown on exactly how many people have RSVP'd yes, no, or are still pending, you can click the chart and hover over the sections to see the exact numbers and percentages. The next section is where you can add in meal choices, which is totally optional, and if you are having a ceremony where people have to select a different meal option. If not, you can totally choose to not use this section, or you can use it just to add in any accommodations. And of course, for this section, you can also add in options for the bride and groom, and there will be detailed counts at the top. Now, what I would recommend for this section is filtering the RSVPs to only show the people who are attending. That way you're only adding in meal options for them, and then you can select the option from the drop-down that is their meal option. If you wanted to, for example, only see food accommodations, you could filter this section over here to not show any blanks, and now you can see all of the food options. And again, that's just another example of how sorting and filtering can help you in this tab. I'm going to just undo it by selecting them and clicking Select All, just like this. The second to last section to the right is where you can keep track of gifts. Again, it may help you to filter the RSVPs to yes for this section, but here you can track different gifts from the different guests, add in any cash amounts, any gift card amounts, and then check off once you have sent a thank you. At the top, you can see the detailed breakdowns for this section. And last but not least, to the far right, we have a section where you can add in any other notes for any of your guests. So that is it for the guest list tab. Yes, it is very comprehensive, but it will give you exact counts and help you to see very clearly exactly everything that is going on with your guest list, attendance, and more. This is what I wanted when I was building out the spreadsheet for my own wedding, and I hope that you find it useful as well. And I'm really excited for you all to use it. The next tab is the seating chart tab. In this tab, you can add in where each of your guests are sitting so that you can have it fully mapped out. Now, you can choose to either map it out within this tab, or I've seen different things of people mapping out their seating charts on paper or using paper plates, and you can just input the information after. It is totally up to you. Now, when you enter this chart, there are a few key things that you need to know. First of all, there are up to 30 tables with 20 seats each that you can plan out. For each table, you can choose the number of seats that are at that table. So for example, at my own wedding, I'm just doing a sweetheart table with my fiance. So I would put 2 here, and it would be for just the 2 of us. At my wedding, we're also going to have 2 tables of 10, and then the rest are going to be tables of 8. So to add in the other table of 10, I would just type in the number of 10 for 10 seats, and they will appear to be filled like that. And then for the other tables, I could type in 8. Now this is totally customizable for your wedding. When adding in your people, I recommend beginning to type in the name because it will make it so much easier to select them than going through the list of all the people attending. So for example, if I wanted to add in Kenneth Wright, I could type in the last name, and then I'm going to select Kenneth from here. As you can see, once I selected Kenneth's name, the progress of the number of guests seated updates, and Kenneth becomes highlighted over here, and his table number, table 2, or T2, appears in the table column. This helps you to see which guests you have seated and which guests you have not seated yet. I'm going to go ahead and add in a few more names. As you can see, the right table should appear in this sidebar for where the guests have been seated. The list is going to go down pretty far for the guests, so you may have to scroll down and then go back to the top. However, I found this layout to be the best for planning out the seats. As you can see in this table here, the guests are listed in order by their group number because the sort by group number selection is selected from the dropdown. However, there are a few other dropdown options here. For example, you can sort by last name, which can be incredibly helpful if you are doing a seating chart based on last name, and you can have all the names listed and see exactly what table they're at. You can sort by table number, and this will show all of the guests who have been seated and their table numbers at the top. And you can also sort by not seated so that all of your guests who have not been seated yet appear at the top. I also want to quickly note that if you add in the same name twice, for example, let's add in Emily Chen again, any duplicates will be formatted a different color, and you will also see this in the table to the left, so you can quickly tell which names you have added in more than once and modify your tables so this isn't the case. All you have to do is remove one of the names and the extra formatting should disappear. And if you add in the same name more than twice, like this, it should format in every instance where it's been added more than once. The next tab, which is the full view seating chart tab, is where you can see your seating charts at more of a zoomed out view. This tab is also locked, so if you accidentally try to edit it, you'll see an error, which you can just click cancel for to avoid messing up any of the formulas and such. I wanted to include this second option so that you can see more of your seating charts at once, which can help you to visualize more of what's going on. The next tab in the spreadsheet is the budget tab. Now, this is also an incredibly detailed budget, but it's exactly what I wanted when planning my own wedding because it will help you to break down the exact numbers for different things. If you're like me and you want to know where all the money is going, where it's being distributed, and more, then I think you're going to absolutely love this budget tab. It may seem a little intimidating at first, but I'm going to show you exactly how to use it, and the automations for all the numbers will help you to track everything with ease. So let's jump into it. The very first thing, I also want to note very quickly that when you originally click on this tab, a lot of the charts are going to appear like there's errors or are just going to be missing completely, and that's because there is no data yet. But as soon as you begin to add in your data and your transaction entries, you should begin to see the charts appear and populate. The very first thing you'll want to do when opening the budget tab is add in your different wedding funds so that you can see your total funds available to budget for the wedding. This is just an example that I added in over here, but you can add in up to 8 different places here that you have money from for your wedding. After you do that, you're going to break down your budget in this section. It's important to note that all of the shaded columns in this tab are fully automated. So for example, these columns are fully automated, so you don't want to type into them. In this section over here, all you need to do is add in your categories and then your budget for each category. And the number above it, and in this chart over here, as well in this section up top, you'll be able to see your total budget and then how many funds you have left to budget. So for example, I still have $5,700 left to budget. So if I wanted to add in something like a live band, then maybe I would budget $3,000 for that. And now my funds left to budget would update, my budget distribution would update, and so on. Based on the transactions that you add into this tab, you can see the total cost that you're going to spend for each category, the amount you've paid, the amount you have left to pay, and the amount of your budget left. Then right next to that, you can see a progress bar that shows how much of your budget for that category has been used, along with a percentage to the right. Before we move over more to the transaction section, there is one last thing that I want to let you know of, and that is for the due dates, which have an asterisk sign. These are completely optional. If you don't have an exact due date for a payment, you don't need to add it in, and any due dates that you do add will then be used in the upcoming due date section of the wedding overview and in the smart calendar. So it's completely up to you whether you use these columns or not. All right, now moving over to the right, let's look at how the transactions work. In this tab, there are a few different sections. First of all, we have a section for one-time payments, and then we have a section for multi-payment expenses, as well as a section to track the payments for those multi-payment expenses. Let's break down a little more. For example, we have a place where you can add in one-time payments, and then we have a section where you can track multi-payments and the payments for them. Let's add in an example here. Maybe, for example, I want to buy some makeup for my wedding, and I want to include that as a one-time payment. It's not something I need to put a deposit down for. It's just something I'm going to the store and paying for. That makes it perfect to put into this section. So under the description, I'm just going to add in bridal makeup, and then I'll add in the category from the dropdown, which would be beauty prep. I'll add in my cost. Let's say it's $70. And then I can mark it paid once I have made the payment. I'll add in a payment date. We'll just use today. I can add in my method of payment. Maybe I use card. And then this paid by section is totally optional, but I'll just use the name Ella for example. Now, as you see, as I began to type in Ella's name, it appeared in a dropdown because I've added her in previously. You could add in any name. So for example, if I add in Roger, Roger will now appear in this dropdown, making it super easy to select the same person multiple times. The paid by section is completely optional, and it's just if you want a little more understanding of who is paying for what. And we do have a pie chart for this further to the right. Now, once the payment has been made, all the charts in the section to the right should update. As you can see, I've spent $120 on beauty prep, which is perfect because I have my $50 expense here and my $70 expense here, which adds to $120. And then all the charts should also reflect the amount that I spent. Now, $70 is very small in the grand scheme of my entire budget, so the charts definitely did not update a ton. But if I, for example, change this to $700, we can see more of a change when I do that. Now let's move over to the multi-payment section. This section is perfect for things that you'll need to do multiple payments for. For example, for my own wedding, we've had to do multiple payments for our venue, our photographer, our videographer, things like that. This will be great with a lot of different vendors. In this section, let's use the example of a live band. So we have budgeted $3,000 for it, and say we found the perfect band for us, which I'm going to add in. So I'll type in live band. I'll add it into the live band category, and then I'll write in the total cost. For example, maybe it's $2,800. Now scrolling to the right, I can add in any payments that I have made for the live band. Maybe, for example, I added in a deposit of $1,000 for the band. I would select the live band expense. I'll add in my amount of $1,000 and mark it as paid. And we'll just choose today. Maybe I paid it with cash. And maybe this was paid by Monica. And then in the notes section, I can just write down that this is the down deposit. Once I've added in this payment, it will now update in the multi-payment expenses. I can now see that for the live band, I've paid $1,000 and I still have to pay $1,800. I can also see that the last payment that I made was today on September 18th. What I could also choose to do is add in a date for a future payment. So for example, I'm going to add in the live band again, and maybe my final payment is due in 3 months. So I'm going to add in December 18th as the due date, and the remaining $1,800 that needs to be paid. And then whenever I make the payment, I can add in the rest of the details. All this does is it adds the next payment date to this area. So as you can see, my last payment today, and my next payment is December 18th. By adding in a due date into this column, this upcoming payment will also be added in to the smart calendar, and it will also be seen in the overview. If I scroll down, here we can see December 18th, live band, and click right on over to it. Once an expense is fully paid off, for example, let's say I ended up paying the rest of the money today for whatever reason, you can see that it will appear as checked off in the multi-payment expenses. That means that the expense has been fully paid and there are no more payments. And again, all of the charts should update, and this section over here should update. As you can see, I can see my total cost and the amount paid for my live band have updated, and that there's still $200 remaining from my $3,000 budget, which means that 93% of my budget has been used. And that is it for how to use this wedding budget tab. Again, there are so many details that you can add in, but it's going to give you such a detailed and exact view of exactly where your finances are going. And this is exactly what I wanted for my own wedding. So again, I hope that you find it useful for yours. You can also totally modify this to make it easier for you. If, for example, you didn't want to worry about multi-payments, you could just add in all the details to the one-time payment area and everything should update just the same. And again, over here, if you wanted to add in a due date, all this will do is add in the upcoming payments to the smart calendar and the overview tab. Now, because we have split up this tab into different sections, I wanted to include another tab where you can see all your payments. And that is in the next All Payments tab, which is also locked so that no edits are accidentally made. In this tab, you'll see all of the payments which have been marked as paid. You can also sort and filter this however you'd like by choosing from the drop-down what you would like to sort by. So for example, maybe I want to sort by amount paid, and then you can sort in either ascending or descending order. This will especially be helpful for looking at the different dates and the different amounts. The next tab in the spreadsheet is the Timeline Checklist tab. This tab essentially serves as your giant to-do list for each of the phases of your wedding planning. In this tab, you have a ton of different sections to add in your tasks. We have a miscellaneous area, a 12 plus months before the wedding area, 6 to 12 months before, 3 to 6 months before, 1 to 3 months before, 1 to 2 weeks before, a few days before, 1 day before, the day of, and post-wedding. For each checklist, you can add in as many tasks as you need, and you can even add in more rows by right-clicking in a row and then selecting Insert One Row Above. Each box contains a checkbox for you to check off the task once it's been completed, an area for the description of the task, a place to put the deadline, a place to delegate it to someone, and any other notes. As you check off the tasks, the progress bar for each will update. In this tab, the deadlines are completely optional. You can choose whether or not you want to add them in. If you do add a deadline in, this will then add the tasks into the Overview tab, into the upcoming deadlines in the Overview tab, as well as the Smart Calendar. And if you want to add in a deadline, you can either type in the date or double-click so that the pop-up calendar appears and select any date. As you begin to add in tasks to the different boxes and check them off, the progress bars will appear for each. And that is it for the very simple Timeline Checklist tab. The next tab is the tab you may have been waiting for, which is the Smart Calendar tab. I'm so excited for you to use this tab because it truly consolidates so much information. In this tab, you can select the month and the year that you want to view. So for example, I have mine set to February 2026 because I know I have a few things in this, but you can choose any month or year that you want. You can also choose what you want to see in the calendar. At first, all of them will be checked off, but for example, if I just wanted to see one type of thing, I could check and uncheck what I wanted to see. As you can see in this area to the right, I already marked one of the payments as paid, which makes it appear like this, and I can actually filter in this section to show all, show only the complete ones, or show only the incomplete ones. So if I selected show complete, I'll only see the completed things in my calendar, but if I choose show incomplete, I'll only see the incomplete things in my calendar. If I scroll to the far right, you can also see a list of all the deadlines that are the month and year you have selected. One thing I also want to note in this tab is that if you click any of the symbols, you can jump exactly to that transaction, to that payment, the task, or whatever it is that is in the calendar, just like this, which makes it super helpful and easy to navigate throughout your spreadsheet. In the left, there is also an Add Other Deadlines section, which allows you to add in any other miscellaneous deadlines right into the calendar from here. So for example, if on February 17th, 2026, I had a random task or something that I needed to do, maybe an appointment, it's added into my calendar just like this, and I could jump right back to it. And then once it is complete, I can mark it like that, and you'll see it marked as complete in the calendar as well. Here's an example of what this looks like if I were to filter by different things as well. You can see what's added or removed. If the number of things you have due on a certain day extends beyond the number of 5 slots, you'll see an area that says plus however many more tasks. If that happens, you can just scroll on over to the right and see the list of all the tasks due in that day. So that is how to use the Smart Calendar tab. The next tab is the Vendors tab. In this tab, you can keep track of and research different vendors for your wedding. You can add in whatever vendors you want, and I include some common ones at the top. In my own wedding, we've done things like photographer, videographer, flowers, transportation, DJ, but you can truly add whatever you want here. The way that you'll do this is for each of these sections, you can add in the vendor type. So if, for example, I wanted to search for transportation here, I could add my title and then use all of the sections below for research. If you need more than the space provided, you can insert another row by right-clicking inside of the box and selecting Insert one row above. You may need to drag down the currency just like this. After that, you can add in the details for the different vendors that you research. You can add in a name, a phone, an email, a location, details of the packages, whether or not you've inquired, availability, cost, and any other notes. At the end, you can also add in a link, maybe to a portfolio or to a website, by selecting the link emoji and clicking the insert link symbol above and pasting in your link and selecting apply. That way you can just click on the link and jump right over to the URL that you have linked it to. Once you've selected a vendor, you can check it off just like this so you can see which of the vendors that you've researched you've chosen to go with. This layout should help you to compare pros and cons of different vendors so that you can make the best choice for your wedding. And we give you lots of different boxes and areas to use in this tab to help you plan and research. The next tab we are going to go over is the Venues tab. As you can see, I've already filled out some details of this tab so you can get an idea of what it can look like, but this is where you can research different venues and see what different venues offer in comparison to others. Once you've decided on a venue, you can check it off at the top so that you know that's the venue you've selected. Now, a lot of this tab is simple to use, but there are a few key things I want to explain. First of all, in the section to the side, you can add in different details. So for example, you could add in different dates that you want to check the availability of, different details you want to check for different venues, cost associated with them, what's included, and any other notes and details. If you need more space for any of the sections, you can simply right-click on the lowest, slightly darker bar anywhere in the row and click Insert one row above, and now you should have another fully functional row. At the top, there's also this plus sign, and if you click this, you can expand a section that gives some of my own suggestions based on what I researched with my own venues. And then you could just easily add these in to your sections to research as well. Again, these are totally optional and you don't have to use them at all, but I wanted to give you a little bit of guidance here from someone who's already gone a bit through the process. And you can easily collapse that by just clicking the minus sign as well. To add in the images here, it's incredibly simple. All you need to do is find the image online that you want to use. I'm just using this free stock image website, but you'll likely want to use an actual image of the venue from its own website. And then once you find the image you want to use, you can right-click the image, click Copy Image Address, and then once you're in the spreadsheet, just paste that address into one of the cells beneath image, and then your image should populate. It might take a few seconds, just like that. And then, of course, in each section, we also have a lot of information for the contact. You can check off if it's inquired, available on certain dates. You can add in a link to the website, whatever you want that is going to help you with researching your different venues. The next tab is a very simple contacts tab where you can add in any important contacts for your wedding. These might be different vendors, it might be certain people in your family, people helping you to plan the wedding. Whatever it is, you can add them here so that you have all of your important contacts in one place. The next two tabs are registry planning tabs, and we give you two different templates here. One of them is more simple like this, and the other is essentially the same thing except you can add in an image so that you can visually see what you want to add to your registry. I've also added in filters to these two tabs so that you can, for example, sort by price, or you could filter to just show the registry items that you said yes to adding, just like this. So in these tabs, you can check off whether or not you added them to your registry. You can add in the registry name, the category, which you can set up in the Start tab, the decision of whether or not you actually want to add it to your registry, which makes these great tabs for just planning. I know in my registry planning tab, I have so many that I'm like, maybe I won't add this, or I'm definitely actually not adding this. And then you can add in a listing name if you find it online, the store or site, the approximate price. Of course, this could change if there's certain discounts and such. And then you can add in a link to the URL with the item and then any other notes. If you're using the second registry planner, you can do essentially what I just did on the venues tab and find an image of whatever item you want to add to your registry. When I planned my registry in Google Sheets, I would just copy the image addresses from websites like Amazon, Crate and Barrel and stuff, and add them right into my spreadsheet. Cell before the image, the slightly darker cell that's part of the image section, and once you paste it in, it might take a couple seconds, but your image should be added in. And that is how these two registry tabs work. The next tab is the day of timeline, which I am so excited to show you. When you click on this tab in your spreadsheet, you'll likely see the general timeline, bride, groom, vendors, and then some different options that you can fill with whatever you want. You can also change any of these areas as well. The point of this tab is to help you map out your entire day so you can see what different people should be doing when. So for example, when you look at this timeline that I have just, for example, mapped out, you should see what the groom and groomsmen should be doing as the bridal party is getting ready and at different points of the day. And you can see how these times overlap, when they come together, etc. If you are a big planner, I think you might love this tab. To begin using this tab, you just need to select a start time from the drop-down. The way this appears will be based on if you selected the 12-hour clock or the 24-hour clock in the Start tab. So for me, I use the 12-hour clock. and then you can select any hour, and the times will update throughout the tab. To add in details to this tab, you are going to merge different cells together, and once you type into them, the colors will automatically appear, and they'll also alternate in darker and lighter colors as well, so that you can easily tell different sections apart from the other. So for example, maybe right here, I'm going to select these cells from 10:15 to 10:45, and then click the Merge Cells button up here. And for example, maybe at this time, the photographer is going to get to the bridal party. And once I click Enter, the color should automatically be added. Maybe in this time, the photographer is going to eat lunch, and another color is added that is slightly lighter so that you can tell them apart. And then you can keep doing this for each of the sections. Just like that. And you can do this for all of the sections here and view the different times that things should get done and in relation to other things. I'm so excited to use this tab, and I think it will really help with organizing the day and seeing what's going to happen at a bird's eye view. The next tab is the music list tab, where you can add in any songs that you'll want to play throughout the day. This will especially be helpful if you have certain music that you want to play during a ceremony, during a cocktail hour, or if you're planning to do dancing at night. Here you can add a song name, the artist who suggested the song to play, the genre of the song, the part of the ceremony that you want it to correspond to, which you can then sort so that they all appear together, and any other notes and details, and then you can check it off if you want to add it to a playlist or a queue, or just to share with a DJ or whoever's going to be playing the music. The next tab is the Extra Info tab, where you can plan out lots of other details of your wedding. For example, you could add in your bridal party by adding in names like this, and then you can select who is going to walk down the aisle together so you can plan out that part of your wedding as well. You can add in first dance information, travel information for your guests, miscellaneous things to plan like favors if you're choosing to do these, things that you might need to rent, wedding inspiration like your bridal party, your guest attire, any colors or themes, photography shots that you want, videography shots that you want, important arrivals, for example, maybe there's certain vendors that you want to make sure get in on time, ceremony notes, things like maybe an entrance song, music, and other things, and then any other notes at the bottom. This is completely for you and for your planning to help you map out your wedding more and make it more of a breeze. The next tab is pretty similar, but even a little less specific, and it's where you can add in any other notes into your spreadsheet. The categories for this tab are on the Start tab, and you can also use this slicer up here to filter by different categories, just like this. This is a great tab to store any extra information that you might need to go back to. Next, we are finally getting into some of the honeymoon tabs. The first tab is the Packing List tab, which I have already added some details into, and you can add in different categories for your packing, like this, and then add in any items and check them off once they've been packed. As you do this, the progress bar beneath each category will appear to update, as well as these charts at the top. In the left sidebar, you can also see details such as today's date, the start and end dates from your honeymoon, which are added in the Start tab. If you wanted to, you could also update them here and just override the formula. Your wedding date, the days until your wedding, and the days until the start of your honeymoon. And you can also see a calendar over here, which will show your wedding date and the honeymoon dates if they're in the current month, as well as today's date. The next tab is the Honeymoon Budget tab, and this is a simplified version of our wedding budget. One of the unique things about this tab is that you can include multiple currencies to get the numbers as exact as possible to your own currency. All you need to do is add in the different currency codes of the places that you'll be visiting and then the exchange rate. For example, if I was going to London, England, and I know that the currency there is the Great British Pound, I could easily find the exchange rate by Googling something like GBP to USD exchange rate and then just adding in that number right here. Make sure that you use this formula down here, which is your desired currency code to your own currency code, to make sure that you're not getting the reverse exchange rate. Other than that, to begin using this tab, you're going to want to add in your total funds in this box up here, and then you're going to break down your budget just like on the Wedding Budget tab. Here's an example of how I have budgeted things. And there's also $2,500 left to budget. Scrolling to the right, here is where you add in your transactions. You can add in a date for the transaction, the category, a description, the location to help you organize them and remember where you paid for what. And then if you paid in a foreign currency, you can add in the amount and select the currency code that you paid in. And if you use your domestic currency, you would just add in the amount to this column. And then the conversion to your domestic currency will appear in the last column. So if you pay in your domestic currency, then that number will just transfer over. But for any foreign currency transactions, it will be converted to your own domestic currency. You can also add in your payment method here. As you add in different transactions, the charts should begin to update, as well as this budget breakdown over here, so you can see how much you've spent in each category, how much you have left, and the percentage of your budget used. So it's pretty straightforward, and I hope that it helps you when planning your honeymoon budget so that you can have an amazing honeymoon. The next tab is the Honeymoon Itinerary tab, which is one of my many itinerary tabs that you can find in my travel itinerary templates, but I wanted to include at least one for you here so that you can map out your days. On the How to Use tab of this spreadsheet, anyone who has purchased it will get an exclusive discount code to use on any of our travel templates so that you can plan your honeymoon. In this itinerary tab, you can select the orange box at the top and select the date of the honeymoon that you are planning. You can add in a brief summary, any locations you'll be. You can type in different times and what you'll be doing based on the category. You can select any of the categories here, and then details. You could also add a link to a URL. For example, if you're visiting a certain place, you may want to add a URL to that place there. Down here, you can add in tasks for a to-do list and cross them off, and this progress bar will update. And you can also add in other notes here. And just like some of the other tabs, you can add in an image to this tab as well. For example, if I was going to Paris and I wanted to add an image of the Eiffel Tower, I could find an image, right-click, select Copy Image Address, and then paste the address into this bar up here, and the image will be added into the cell. So this should help you to get a bird's eye view of the different days and map them out. Again, I have many different itinerary template options that you can find in my travel itinerary templates pack or in my fan favorite travel planner spreadsheet. The next tab is my Bachelorette Budget tab. This is very, very similar to the Honeymoon Budget tab, except we don't have anything with foreign exchange rates, which makes it much more simple. I haven't filled out this tab, but it is almost exactly like the other tab. You can add in your total funds here, a breakdown of your budget down here, and then add in any of your transactions, and the charts should begin to populate. The next two tabs are Bachelorette Itinerary tabs. The first itinerary tab is just like the honeymoon itinerary that I just showed you, so I'm not going to go over it again here, but you can use it the exact same way. The second itinerary tab is very similar to the day of wedding tab that I showed you before. Here you can merge different cells. I recommend merging both the description column and then the notes column separately. And you can add things like this. And you can do this for each of the days. Remember to select your start time over here. And you can also add the date for each of these sections by double-clicking the tab here or typing it in and then selecting a date. And then you'll have a date. Next, we have the Bridal Shower Budget tab, which is exactly like the Bachelorette Budget tab, except it's for a bridal shower. So I'm not going to go over it again here, but it should be pretty straightforward to use. Then we have a Bridal Shower Guest List, Invites, and Thank You tab, which is very similar again to the main Wedding Guest List tab, except it's a bit more streamlined, specifically for bridal showers. You can add in details like the first name, last name, who they're a guest of, a guest tag, whether or not you want to invite them, whether or not they're a child, notes, contact and address information, invites and RSVPs, food accommodations, and gifts and thank yous, as well as other notes. Again, we have the filter applied to this tab that you can use to help you stay organized. I also have a note here that says if your bridal shower guest list is largely derived from your wedding list, I recommend copy and pasting all the names and then deleting the rows of those who are not invited to speed up time. Now this is totally up to you. It may help you if you don't want to type out first and last names again, but if you think that's too complicated, then you can totally skip that and just write out the names. It's just something you do once, and then after that you'll have the list to keep. And again, I really do recommend taking the time to write out the names because then you'll have exact counts of different things. The next tab is the bridal shower timeline, which again functions very similar to the other timelines where you select a start time and then you merge different cells like this and map out your bridal shower. You can also add any notes in the side. This can help you stay on top of things for your bridal shower, whether you're planning it or whether someone else is planning it. And we're approaching the final couple tabs of the spreadsheet, which is the rehearsal and dinner and the rehearsal and dinner timeline. The rehearsal and dinner tab is essentially just a guest list for the rehearsal dinner. It's very condensed compared to the other guest lists because there's not as many details that need to go into this likely, but you can add in a name, guest of the bride or groom, invited to the rehearsal, dinner, or both, whether or not they're attending, any food, accommodations, or other accommodations that you may need to know about, and any other notes. And as you add in these details, the charts up here should update. Lastly, we have the rehearsal and dinner timeline, which functions exactly the same as the bridal shower timeline, so I'm not going to go over it again here, but this can help you to map out the rehearsal and dinner timeline as well. And that is it for this wedding planner spreadsheet. I'm so excited for you to use this spreadsheet, and I truly hope that it helps you to plan out the wedding of your dreams. I've tried to make this spreadsheet as aesthetically pleasing and functional as possible so that you can do all the things that you need to do to plan out your dream wedding and stay organized, while also hopefully having design that works well for you. Again, I'm a bride myself, so I know what it is like to go through this process, and this spreadsheet is exactly what I wanted and am going to use while I finish planning out my own wedding. Best of luck on your wedding planning, your wedding, and your future. You will be in my thoughts and prayers. Thank you again for watching, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me and I'll be happy to help. Thanks for watching.